what a story.
With a little books, they transform the reality. They transform
right.
also the world. So as
That's right.
you said, they are not politicians. They don't make the policies. So
Right.
they, in the entire world, and international and intergenerational
Yes.
society, they transform all these things.
Yes, Manuel. And what does that tell us? And this is worth talking about for a moment, the power of storytelling, the power of a well-told story to communicate deep truths about human life, the human condition, and to offer a vision of human life that is attractive, is compelling. Because when I picked up the Lord of the Rings, for example, I picked up the Lord of the Rings when I was much older in life than many other people. I was in my 40s. I was working on my doctoral dissertation on John Locke at King's College London. And so I'm studying John Locke during the day. And then I would go into a pub and I would read Lord of the Rings at night. And it wasn't really an escape, because when I would go into that book, it made me want to be a better man. It made me want to be braver, to be a little more virtuous, a little more courageous as I would come out to face my world. So it was morally invigorating, and it still is. It continues to affect me that way, just as Lewis's writings do the same. That's a rare gift, and it would be wonderful if we can encourage some of your audience, some of your friends who are watching this, to think there's something that they can do in their own sphere of influence with their gifts to offer a vision of human life that is compelling, it's attractive, it's beautiful, and that can really change people. It can, in a real way, it can change the world.
Yes, of course. Also, you feel inner peace when you read Tolkien, when you read Lewis, and also, as you said, are a lot of profound truths in this storytelling.
Yes.
I remember, for example, this idea of Edmund in the case of the Chronicles of Narnia,
Yes.
that he is tempted, and all of us is tempted, and
That's right.
also we fell in this temptation.
That's right.
So the idea of Lewis is, well, see your the wrong things that you have done, but remember that Aslan forgives you,
Yes.
takes from your hand, and wake you from this
Yes.
profound hole that you are.
Yes. And this is an incredibly important point you're making, Manuel. For both of these authors, I think what their stories communicate is that the temptations, the darkness, the sin that is around us and that is in us, we can't overcome that on our own, right? So what Tolkien, the word he uses is eucatastrophe. It's spelled EU and then catastrophe. And what he means by that is the reversal of a catastrophe. So what happens at the end of the Lord of the Rings? If I could do the spoiler alert for your audience, you know what happens. Frodo, at the cracks of Mount Doom, what does he say? He says, I'm not going to do what I came to do. The ring is mine. The ring is mine. He puts it back on his finger. And then we know what happens. Gollum, this despicable creature, Gollum, he grabs the ring by biting it off of Frodo's finger and then falls into the cracks of Mount Doom. So the ring is destroyed. Here's the point, Manuel. The ring is destroyed, not really by Frodo, not really by the Fellowship. It's a sudden miraculous grace. That's the expression that Tolkien uses. Help comes from the outside. It's a bit of a mystery. And it's the same for C.S. Lewis, isn't it? In the Chronicles of Narnia, with the children going into the stable, and they really believe this is the end for them. They're going into this dark place and their lives are going to end. That's what they believe. And we know what happens. Aslan turns the stable into a portal into the high country, into his country, and they are rescued. They're rescued not because of their own strength and power, but because of a sudden miraculous grace. We need grace in our lives to overcome the darkness, right?
I think, well, I don't know if you know this philosopher from the United States, Michael Sandel. He has a book, the last book, he says something like you are saying now. If we don't know that and we don't accept this miraculous grace in our lives, we are attempting with the common good of the nation. So
Mm.
are a lot of things that are not from us, not from the things that we are doing, but is from another place.
Yes.
We call it God, and it's a
Yes.
person. It's not a place. It's not a thing. It's a person that is, with his providence, is
Yes.
guiding the history of the human beings.
Yes.
So it is another profound truth that is in these books of Lewis and Tolkien. And I think that we are Christians. We need to propose again this idea of the grace that is needed for us to think how we are living this time of the history. That
Yes.
not all the things are, or not all the things come from us. The good things not come from us, only the evil things, the worst things are the things that come from us, but
Yes.
good things come from God by itself.
Yes. Thank you for that, Manuel. I completely agree with you. And it's so important to say, because I think our natural inclination is to think we're going to solve all of the problems. We can overcome all of the difficulties through our intelligence, through science, through all these other tools. And we have to use these other tools. It's not that we don't use them. But I think the point is, yes, we have to be engaged in the fight against the darkness, against evil, but realizing that we are so frail, we're so weak. And I do this all the time. I underestimate how weak I am, how prone to temptation I myself am. And that, it seems to me, that's what Tolkien and Lewis are so good about reminding us about. Even they want to elevate heroism and the individual, but it's always with a very realistic eye of how weak the individual is and needs help from his friends, and also from, I think, from God, from a divine source. Yes, from our friends, but also from the outside. Or we can't stand. We can't stand by ourselves.
Don't you think that also our friends are a sign of the providence of God?
Oh, wow. Wow. Tolkien and Lewis definitely believe that. They definitely believe that. The idea of finding friendship when they didn't expect it, and how it overwhelms them, and how filled they are with a sense of grace and gratitude. Let me see if I can find the place here quickly when they're in Rivendell, if I can find it and read a few lines, because it's so, it just so captures their sense of gratitude. If I can find it quickly, let me see. Let me take a look here. I'm looking. Yes, here it is. This is from The Lord of the Rings in book 1. And remember what they've discovered in Rivendell. They're with the elves now, and they find this absolute haven of rest and peace and joy and creativity and friendship that they didn't expect as they're on their journey. And here's what Tolkien writes. He says, for a while, the hobbits continued to talk and to think of the past journey and of the perils, the dangers that lay ahead. But such was the virtue of the land of Rivendell that soon all fear and anxiety was lifted from their minds. The future, good or ill, it was not forgotten, but it ceased to have any power over the present. Health and hope grew strong in them, and they were content with each good day as it came, taking pleasure in every meal and in every word and song. Wow, that's grace.
Yeah.
That's grace through your friends, right? The grace of God through our friends. And I think this is where the war played a role for both of them. I think when you're in a war situation, whether it's the First World War or now they have to live through a Second World War, your life is so lived on the edge. And so when people show you kindness and grace in that kind of situation, it's so vivid, isn't it? It seems so remarkable, doesn't it?
That's right.
Right?
uh, you have said two things that I want to ask you, and are different from the theme of the friendship and also from the grace. Um, I think also that Tolkien and Lewis, with these expectations and also these experiences that they have in the war, and the ideas that are in the books, I think also that they want to say to the next generations, be careful. You are all the times in a battle, in a
Yes,
fight.
yes,
You need to be with friends.
yes,
You need to have wisdom with the
yes,
elves or whatever do you want to name it.
yes.
But you need also to be prepared for the battle. If you are not prepared, you can perish.
That's right. That's exactly right. You, we have to be always vigilant, always ready. And I think, one of the examples of that, say from the Lord of the Rings, of course, uh, uh, the idea of the fellowship of the ring, right? Fellowship. It's just built in. Relationship, friendship. It's not an accident.
Yeah.
And I think again, they knew this from their war experience. We think about what is it like to be in battle in a trench with your fellow soldiers around you, and you depend for your life on the guy next to you on your left and your right, and they're in the thing together. They're in the contest together, and always being vigilant. You're right, because the darkness, the shadow. How does Tolkien put it? That the shadow, the dark shadow from Mordor, it goes away for a while, but then it reappears and takes another form. It takes another form, and remember the last march of the Ents, the amazing creation of these tree-like creatures, the Ents. They don't want any part of this initially. They want to be neutral. They want to be left out, but they realize they can't. They can't keep out the evil. They're going to have to make a decision. They're going to have to choose the good. And so it's the last march of the Ents. That has to be Tolkien thinking about Great Britain and the other democracies as Europe is prepared to go to war again against the Nazis. You can't be neutral. You're going to have to fight. As much as Great Britain did not want to be involved in another world war, no one in Britain wanted another war, and they put it off as long as they could. But the last march of the Ents, that's Great Britain again in 1939, I think. I think this got to be on Tolkien's mind as he's writing that very chapter, the last march of the Ents, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. But
Right.
also, I remember in the first chapter that you wrote in Hobbit, A Werewolf and a Great War, that you are talking also with this idea of the myth of progress. Don't you think that the battle that we are fighting in this 21st century is transhumanism, eugenism,
Yeah.
and the transformation, the development, behavioral of the human being with implementations of robotics and so on. And we must defend the nature of the human being
Yes.
because in this chapter is quite impressive. I am very glad that I read this part because when I read this first chapter, I remember what Heidegger has said with the domination of the science, the domination of the technology,
Yes.
and how the people want to have the power of the human nature and transform. So
Yes.
with this idea of the myth of the progress and these ideas of the battle, the fight, these new ideologies that we have in our century, you don't know, sorry, don't you think that we must fight these ideas, ideologies?
Yes. Yes, Manuel, that is a fabulous question. It's an excellent question. And I think it's going to be something that we're going to explore in the film series, probably in episode 5. We'll tell the basic story of Tolkien and Lewis, episodes 1, 2, 3, and 4. Episode 5 is going to be getting at that question. What do Tolkien and Lewis have to tell us about our own challenges now? And you put your finger on one huge challenge, on a different kind of assault on human nature, isn't it? It's a new kind of assault.
Yes.
a different kind of dehumanization. I think you're exactly right. And we're going to have to think together long and hard. We may want to interview you for episode 5, Emmanuel, so keep your schedule open because it's exactly the right kind of question we're going to want to address. I think these attacks on what it means to be human, they are just ongoing. They take a different form, but they are with us right now. And science can be a wonderful friend and has been a wonderful friend to humanity. But science disconnected from ethics, disconnected from morality, disconnected from God, as C.S. Lewis put it, it will mean the abolition of man, the abolition of man. In an attempt to control nature, we will actually undo our own dignity, and we will assault human nature, and we will become slaves to the machine, slaves to the state, and science being a huge part of that, the abuse of science. What was the line from Winston Churchill during the Second World War, as he's warning about the Nazis? In one of his speeches, he talks about the lights of perverted science, that this new tyranny will be made worse. It will be worsened by the lights of perverted science. And what Churchill meant by that, same thing Tolkien and Lewis meant: science disconnected from morality, from the good, right? That's an ever-present danger.
Yes. I think that also the developing of the science, this last century, is without this ethics, as you have said, and also this connection with the telos, with the final idea of God. We need to know, but this knowing, this wisdom, this science is need to be linked with this prime and supreme God.
Yes.
So when we disconnect this science with God and ethos, we have these problems, these issues in our society.
Yes, I think that's exactly right. And I think even if you're a person who doesn't have any particular faith, you don't think of yourself as a person of faith, you can see that. You can see how science can become a real problem, a real threat to our freedom, to our dignity, because science disconnected from morality, from God, will not think about, should we do this? Should we clone people? Should we manipulate genes inside children in the womb? It won't think about should we. It will just say, can we? If we can, we will. Well, that's a problem.
A big problem.
I agree.
Mr. Loconte, we want to thank you for the interview, but we want also to ask you for this last part that you have told from the series, the documental that you are working. How many chapters or how many series are? What are the topics of these parts of the series?
Right.
How do you plan to develop these interviews or these elements?
Yes.
When do you want to publish this documental, and where? YouTube, Instagram, or your page? Where?
Great. Thank you for asking that, Manuel. I love to talk about this topic, so this is terrific. Well, what we imagine now is a 5-part documentary series. And we just did a screening at Grove City College just for episode 1. So the first episode, which is about an hour long, about an hour and 10 minutes long, episode 1 is basically done. We had a wonderful event at Grove City College. We packed out their auditorium. Episode 1 tells their early lives as young boys and then going into war. And it's just before the two of them meet, because they don't meet until 1926. So we take you right up to the point when they're going to meet. That's episode 1. Episode 2, they will meet at Oxford in 1926. They start to become friends. We will talk more about the myth of progress in episode 2, as we think about what's just happened in the First World War, as these two men are becoming friends, and things are now happening in the 1920s. The emergence of these ideologies that we've been talking about. That's episode 2. That will take us up to, in terms of years, I think that's going to take us up to about, probably 1933. We're going to take it from about right after the First World War to 1933, 33, because that's when Adolf Hitler comes to power in 1933. Lewis has become a Christian by then, so episode 2 will see the conversion of Lewis. We'll see the friendship between Tolkien and Lewis in episode 2, right up to Adolf Hitler, 1933. Episode 3, I'm telling your audience, I'm giving a lot away now. Episode 3, we will go from 1933 right up, we think, until about 1940 with the Blitz on London. The bombing of London. Yeah. So we will now track, okay, what's happening in Europe, 1933 to 1940, the rise of communism, the rise of fascism, Hitler on the march, and the Second World War now begins. And here we are now in 1940, Britain now is being assaulted in the bombing of London. That's episode 3. Episode 4 will be kind of putting it all together now and saying, okay, we've seen their lives, their friendship, the war, and now we're going to show you they've begun writing their great epic works. The Hobbit is done. Now Tolkien is writing The Lord of the Rings. Lewis is writing the Space Trilogy. He's writing the Screwtape Letters, and he starts thinking about the Chronicles of Narnia. And that will take us to the end of the basic story. And I think it's going to end now. I'm going to give you a teaser for the audience.
Thank you very much.
I think it's going to end with Tolkien finishing The Lord of the Rings. Wow. And Lewis then responding to Tolkien and this beautiful work that he's written. I won't give it all away, but that's probably how episode 4 is going to come to a close. And then episode 5 will be, as we discussed, application. What do we do? How do we think about Tolkien and Lewis now in our present time? So that's the big picture. Our plan is to go back to Britain early next year and to finish filming episodes 2, 3, and 4. Finish the filming. Our scripts are ready. And we'll spend several weeks there. We'll finish the filming. And then when we finish the filming, we'll go to like Amazon or we'll go to Netflix and we'll say to those distributors, okay, here is episode 1. Take a look at that. We have everything filmed for the rest of the episodes, but now we need help. Now we need more money to go to do the post-production work and to negotiate with the Tolkien and Lewis estates and to say to Amazon or Netflix, okay, let's make a deal. Let's make a deal. So the earliest I think we could have this, the 5 episodes ready, probably the earliest for distribution would be the end of 2022. That would be the earliest.
Super. Yeah, that's very good. So also we want to ask you, because maybe in the 10,000 people that we have hearing this interview, maybe will be people that has a lot of money and maybe will be interested in investing with this project that you have. So how they can contact you by email or how?
Yes. Thank you, Manuel. Thank you so much for making that invitation, because we are trying to raise funds. We've been on a shoestring budget, a tiny little budget, trying to do what we're doing. And it's amazing we finished episode 1. It's a very high quality production. It's a Hollywood quality production. Like the trailer you saw, but even better, even better. So people can help in 2 ways. They can go to our website, which is hobbitwardrobe.com. hobbitwardrobe.com, and you'll see places where you can give, and you'll see the trailer is there. You can also email me personally if you like, and I'd be happy to respond to any questions coming from people. And my email is joe@josephloconte.com. joe@joseph, Joseph, Loconte, LOCONTE.com, joe@josephloconte.com. And I'd be happy to take questions there. And if people want to support in some way through their prayers, through their connections with other people, through their own giving, anything can help us along the way. We'd be grateful for anything that in any way people wanted to help. We'd be most grateful for that, Manuel. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Loconte. I think that in Latin America we have your book translated to Spanish. And I think that is quite interesting to talk with you, to know how do you see the history and the ideas of Tolkien and Lewis.
Yes.
And also, I think that this interview is quite important because all the works that you are doing in English, we can translate it in Spanish, and a lot of people can
Yes.
know you and know your work as the documentary.
Well, that's a terrific gift to me, Manuel, that you are so engaged and interested in this. It makes me think of the line in the Lord of the Rings where Frodo says after they've stopped off in an inn and they've gotten help, and he says, I'm paraphrasing now. He says, I never looked for this kind of help and kindness, but to receive it turns evil to great good. I love that line. The friendship turns evil to great good. And I feel like that's what I feel from young men like you, Manuel, the help that we've gotten along the way. So that is just terrific. Tell me how I can be a help to you and to your website and what you do. If you send me a link when this is live, I will get it out on my social media and make sure my people know about what you're doing.